Ixat, mortat, kurharus. Come forth, vessels bound by the chains of death. Rise up from your rotten abode and do my bidding. Let your emptiness be filled with my almighty will and... Oh. You're back early. I thought gathering firewood took longer than that. Nothing drastic, of course. Just, stretching. Don't be absurd. Of course I wouldn't dream of trying to raise the forest dead to ambush you on your return. That would be silly. I'm a lady of my word, after all. Also, there isn't anything bigger than a dead squirrel for 100 yards in any direction. So, that pointy stick of yours set itself on fire on cue? Really? What an amateurish enchantment. The lowest apprentice could manage that parlor trick. Now, if I were to forge a blade, every strike would leach the very essence of life from my foes. The slightest nick would reduce the greatest warriors to empty husks, rising up to do my bidding as their stolen energy fueled my necromancy. Why, in mere weeks, I would have an army of the broken dead at my command, surging forth to subjugate the world of the living beneath my... I couldn't lift a sword? I'll have you know I'm in excellent physical condition for someone who's done no significant physical labor over the past decade. I'd only have to mildly reduce the weight with magic, or have a minion carry it for me. Why risk genius, after all? That's what mindless undead are for. To take all the risks and do all the irksome labor, freeing my superior mind to spend all its time in study and contemplation. Have I literally never been outside or done anything? What kind of stupid question is that? I have accomplished countless unprecedented academic and magical feats. The fact that I never chose to engage in crude peasant work is a simple matter of efficiency. Nothing more. It would be a waste of my talents to grub around in the muck like those simpletons. Such menial matters are more suited towards your type, as I'm sure today's little trek through the miserable wilderness proved. I wouldn't trip over roots so much if I wore shorter robes. But then my adornment wouldn't fit my status. And I'm certain even you can see that is simply unacceptable. Then again, going by your clothing, perhaps not. How did I get to Greenwild Glade in the first place? I was carried by servants, as befits a queen, you barbarian, until you cut them all down unprovoked and assaulted my person. Oh, that's not the way you remember it? Then your memory simply must be incorrect. So, hero, now that you've ruined my life's work and forced me to endure your brutal, torturous march through this infernal jungle, what fresh hell do you have planned for me? What ignoble persecution will the barbarian now bring to bear on the intellectual, lashing out in its primitive ways against the erudite and sophisticated? What desecrations will the base and superstitious inflict on the long-suffering intellectual? What utter depths of depravity can your crude mind fashion? You want to talk. And what could we possibly have to talk about? I am a genius and scholar. You are a lumbering, muscle-brained oaf swinging a pointed stick at anything that looks at you funny. I bring knowledge and enlightenment to this sad little world. You perform tricks for the amusement of simpering peasants and inbred nobles. I am condemned for my work, forced to labor unappreciated in the shadows, while you enjoy the accolades of ignoramuses. No doubt you've been the toast of many a tavern and banquet hall. perhaps even been offered the hand of some empty-handed noble's daughter, or pretty perfect princess, while I, victim of a cruel fate, are condemned to toil alone in the dark with only the dead for company? Have I ever considered that dressing in black and surrounding myself with reeking dead that hunger for living flesh will make me unpopular? Base and primitive superstition. The dead are more efficient soldiers, farmers, and laborers than the living. The fact that some might wear the half-rotten flesh of your deceased grandfather only discomforts the ignorant. It's an empty shell lying around doing nothing and ought to be put to work. And the occasional zombie slipping control to seek out fresh brains is a minor hiccup, not something to run a woman out of town for. Am I speaking from experience? Well, if you must know, there have been one or two incidences during my early studies into the art, but only because of the difficulty of locating primary sources. All the ordinary books available are heinous dark magic, this and blasphemy against the divine, that and, ooh, you might kickstart the apocalypse. Even a genius of my caliber needs at least a rudimentary understanding if one is to get it right the first time. A handful of shambling undead wandering down the village road are an inevitable consequence of ignorant suppressions of knowledge. Do I ever consider that anything might be my fault? Of course. As a genius, I look on events with a detached perspective of utter logic. For instance, I would not have been in this situation if I had not been so selflessly generous to an intruder bumbling into my home. I would not have been ripped from my dwelling, my life's work in ruins, if I were not such a kind soul. I would not have been tortured and interrogated, dragged through this green hell to... Where are we going again? A festival.